So, Sean, all this talk, I think what pushes on the urgency that Crafts have to have as well, they have the quarterback. Mm-hmm. And I've said the two comparisons, and I still believe it. His career could take two different trajectories. Justin Herbert, where the first 3-4 years are wasted, but year 5, year 6, you get it right and hire the right head coach. And at least he's still your quarterback. Because it was Anthony Lynn, failure, Brandon Staley, failure, and then Jim Harbaugh. But you wasted away the prime opportune years of a quarterback under a cost control contract. Or it could be Matt Stafford, where year after year, he does it all for the franchise, covers up the deficiencies, but poor ownership and poor front office work and general managing. Eventually, you trade him or he leaves and he brings another franchise a lot of success. Drake Maye has the base of what you want. Mm-hmm. So the question is, what's best for Drake Maye long term? Do they keep Jerod Mayo, keep Alex Van Pelt, who's done a good job developing them, and look for improvement in year 2 and give them a 2-year runway? Keep Jerod Mayo, fire Alex Van Pelt and get a new OC, or clean house. Jerod Mayo gone, Alex Van Pelt gone, and just start new in year 2.
And it's kind of crazy to say this after we just spent 15 to 20 minutes somewhat ripping Jerod and the coaching staff and the organization, but I do think at this point the best thing would to be keeping Jerod and keeping Van Pelt. I don't think that Van Pelt has done enough to lose his job. I think that he has been the best coordinator, the best of the 3 kings, if you want to put it that way, with Jerod and Covington. I think AVP has been the best one of those 3. Yeah. And it's certainly, we've talked a ton about Drake's development, and Jerod came out and said that AVP is the most responsible for that. Drake actually just came out the other day and kind of said something similar, how he appreciates working with Van Pelt and, how much he has grown and learned from him and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So I think to throw AVP out the door just for the sake of doing some sort of change and then keeping Jerod and Covington, I don't think that's the best way to go about it. Yeah. I also think there's a lot to be said that, another new coordinator for Drake. So he had one his second to last year in school. He had one his last year in school. He has a new one this year. I mean, 4 coordinators in 4 years, that would be if the Patriots brought someone new in. Yeah. And I just, how do you get any sort of, traction? How do you, and then what? And who's a coordinator? I think that's a valid point too. Like, are you throwing away AVP just for, the next AVP at this point? I don't think that there's, a lot of the young up-and-coming offensive guys, they're going to be getting head coaching looks soon. So if you do bring one of those guys in, what's to say Drake's not working with 5 coordinators in 5 years at that point too? So, and I do think that has to, that has to be in the back of Robert Kraft's mind and Elliot Wolf's mind and Jerod Mayo's mind that, we need to be thinking long-term with this. And I do think that there's some sort of, you can, I don't know, maybe take some solace or there's safety. It's, I guess AVP is almost like a safety net in the fact that you probably don't have to worry about him going anywhere in 2 years or 3 years. I think at this point, if he can turn into a really good offensive coordinator, I think that's probably where his ceiling is. So I just think for a handful of different reasons, I think the best thing would be keeping Jerod, keeping Alex Van Pelt, and spending both draft capital, money, everything to make a better team around Drake, and hopefully that would be that'll lead to success in year 2.
What the fan in us always talks about is going out, getting the best head coaching candidate. But when you're talking with the Crafts, are they going to spend? Mm-hmm. They just got done paying a head coach $20 million. This is his last season that he'll be on the books. Maybe that's part of the way of why they underspent on the cap so much, right? But if I am running this team, and it's the same of, I was a guy that was go get Mike Vrabel last season, but I understand the want of getting an offensive-minded head coach. Because look at the ultimate success stories across the NFL, especially, let's say, with inexperienced quarterbacks. Brock Purdy and the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan's there. The play calling's not going anywhere. The Packers with Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love. Guess what? Jordan Love can keep getting better and better and better. The play calling isn't going anywhere because Matt LaFleur is a play caller and the head coach. With what Kevin O'Connell's establishing in Minnesota, You let Kirk Cousins walk out the door. In steps Sam Darnold, who's having a better season than Kirk Cousins, and over the past few weeks has once again gotten the team back on track to getting into the playoffs and playing winning football. Maybe Sam Darnold leaves in free agency, but guess what? The play calling isn't going anywhere because Kevin O'Connell's a head coach. The best thing to do for the Patriots right now, to me, is clean house. Get the GM out, get the head coach out, and start from scratch. Should have done it a year ago.
Yep.
But hire a general manager that you believe in. And as you're hiring the general managers and going through the hiring process, ask him who his head coach should be. Ask him who he likes as an offensive coordinator, as an offensive play caller. Why? How do you build up the team? How do you build the team around Drake Maye? You meet with that GM and go, we have Drake Maye. What do you do next? We need receivers. We need tackles. We have a good running back. We need everything. How do you build? But it's more important that go out and spend. Get a Ben Johnson. Because where they're at right now is their best bet is like a Wes Phillips with the Vikings who doesn't call the plays in Minnesota. So say if you bring in a Wes Phillips, you're starting scratch. Again, a rookie play caller. But guess what? I think Wes Phillips has learned from someone much better than what AVP has been learning from this last season because he's been teaching himself and it's been Med McAdoo. Now, Alex Van Pelt came from the Kevin Stefanski coaching tree, but go get someone like that. Is it a Dan Pitcher who you interviewed last season but ended up taking the Bengals offensive coordinator job? So he took a promotion there and he probably won't leave Cincinnati because he has Joe Burrow. A Shea Tierney, the Giants passing game coordinator. The best case scenario to me, Sean, it's what the Crafts are wishing for. And that's all this is at the point, is a wish, is Brian Daboll gets fired by the Bears, gets fired by the Giants, who have publicly backed him and Joe Shane, but if stuff continues to be ugly, who knows? He hits free agency. They keep Jerod Mayo. They hire Brian Daboll. And if stuff continues how it is, let Jerod Mayo go midseason, elevate Brian Daboll to an interim head coach. And then if he does well, boom, that's your head coach the next one. But that's just like a back road way and hoping and praying and wishing for you get an offensive-minded head coach. When if you start from scratch right now and you give Ben Johnson $15, $16 million a year, you have your franchise quarterback and who is the hot name that everyone wants, the hot commodity of the next great head coach in the NFL because of how good of an offense he runs with the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, the more you talk about it, I'm like coming around now and I'm like, oh man, should I, is that the best way to go about it? To me, like, is Ben Johnson really going to come here? And I think that's kind of...
I think that's a great question.
I think that's kind of where I'm at because I don't think like you just do this whole teardown just for the sake of maybe getting Ben Johnson. And then if you don't, then what? I guess then at that point, then you turn to Vrabel, which is, you know, probably a better situation than you have right now as well. And then let Vrabel steer it. So I don't know. I just keep coming around to, I don't think that the Patriots are that great of a landing spot for someone like a Ben Johnson. No. And it's just, you know, you have the quarterback, which is the most important, but you also have so many other questions. And, you know, Ben Johnson's would be coming from the most dynamic, the deepest, you know, offense in the league at this point. I mean, you know, despite a lot, you know, Detroit having a lot of injuries right now and everything, and really for the last few weeks, the offense is fine. I mean, the offensive line, the receivers, the running backs. I mean, he would come here and it would be like coaching a JV team compared to what he has at this point. So I can't see, you know, a Ben Johnson, you know, agreeing to come here as opposed to like, I don't know, a Chicago or something, because then you fix the offensive line in Chicago and you have a lot of other skill players. And, you know, there are other examples, but I guess I just can't think of, you know, the Patriots being like the top of mind for any of these key, you know, for Ben Johnson. And without Ben Johnson, if it's not Ben Johnson, then I do think, you know, you stick with what you got and you kind of just hope that, you know, a lot of draft capital and, you know, building the roster, a better roster will help Drake improve and help the team get back to, you know, a respectful level of football.
Just think of the vacancies that we could see after the season. The Raiders don't got much there. Yep. The Giants, offensive line, elite wide receiver, defensive line. Nice. The Browns, I think Stefanski stays. I don't think the Haslams are that dumb. If I'm a head coach, I wouldn't want to go there because you're stuck with Deshaun Watson.
Yep.
The Jaguars, as much of a joke of a franchise they are, franchise quarterback, wide receiver one, defensive line, and you'll have a top 5 pick in the draft, maybe. And then you look at what the Patriots are. Quarterback, top 3 pick, meddling owners. The Bears, you said it. I mean, they've been in my opinion, that was the biggest disappointment this season.
Yeah.
Was the Chicago Bears and the New York Jets too, but it was the Bears. They have both tackles. You need to figure out the interior of that line. You need to get a play caller in there that could help Caleb Williams see, like literally seeing the game and make it easier on him because he has all the talent. You have the receivers, you have the D-line, you have a corner. And it seems like Kevin Warren runs a show and Ryan Poles is a good GM. So when you compare it to what the vacancies could be there out around the league, yeah, you're right, Sean. Like the Patriots might be, they're either the worst or the second worst job out there on the open market for head coaches. And it's even, there was the Greg Bedard report that offensive coordinators came to interview with the Patriots, met with Jerod Mayo, Elliot Wolf, and Robin Glazer, and didn't like how the Patriots organization sounded. They didn't like the direction of the organization. The interviews were, quote, light on football. So that's the reality you have of these offensive coordinators coming in. And it's the same thing. They have to correct this. Like, why is a lawyer and Robin Glazer in that interview room? I understand Jerod Mayo being there. That's a head coach. I understand Jonathan Kraft and Robert Kraft to an extent. They're the owners. If you hire the right head coach and you hire the right GM and you let your football people make football decisions, that's what you do. The New York Giants, we saw it in the Hard Knocks in the offseason, going through their defensive coordinator hiring process where they landed on the DC from the Titans. I'm blanking on his name. But it was Brian Dable and Joe Shane going through that process. The football guys with the mayors chiming in. Like, why are those people in the room? And the fact that it's, quote, light on football, you have all these guys. Some of them didn't end up even getting play calling or offensive coordinator jobs, but basically calling out that job in the interview process for being a joke. It's a reflection on how the league sees the Patriots. They were right to move on from Bill Belichick, the GM. He was tone deaf in his drafting towards the end of his tenure. It was bad. Interior offensive linemen, punters, kickers, all taken in the top 5 rounds when you need receivers. It was awful. But it should have been handled better than this. And to me, again, it circles a lot back to the ownership.